Starting with number 10, ever heard of the phrase once in a blue moon? Well, there's a reason for that. Blue moons are actually fairly common and usually occur every 2 years. Full moons follow a 12-month cycle, though it takes around 29.5 for the cycle to complete, meaning the 12 full cycles occur every 354 days, 11 days short of a full year. So eventually an extra 13th moon occurs known as the blue moon. But what's actually even more rare are 2 blue moons in 1 year. The last time this occurred was in 2018, and scientists anticipate that this will happen again in 2037. So keep a tally and make sure to catch all 14 that year. Coming in at number 9, if I were you, I'd get your camping gear ready. Write down a list of wishes and head out to the wilderness to witness the Perseid meteor shower set to occur on August 11th and 12th. They usually happen only once a year and is considered the meteor shower of the year. It is known as one of the most plentiful meteor showers, with over 50 to 100 meteor showers raining from the sky. That's potentially 100 wishes to make. Perseids are also known for creating fireballs, larger explosions of light that last longer than the average meteor. It should be viewable in Ontario and northern Quebec. So hopefully that works for you. The best viewing time is right before dawn, so stay up late or wake up early. Grab a cup of joe and a blanket and witness the magic. Coming in at number 8, if you think thunderstorms only happen on Earth, well, you're dead wrong, obviously. Considering the last 2 weeks have been rain city, thunderstorms feel a little too common right now. But this thunderstorm not only occurs on a different planet, there have only been 6 recorded since 1876. The Great White Thunderstorm on Saturn occurs 1 every 29.5 Earth years. They are massive convective storms that appear as giant white blobs on the planet's observable surface. The last recorded storm was in 2010, which means within our lifetime we should see another one around 2040-ish. Just enough time for you to get a big awesome telescope so you can catch the wondrous event in your very backyard. And coming in at number 7, volcanoes, aka the pimples of the Earth's crust, or at least that's how I see them. Volcanoes may look just like your average Himalayan mountains, but are actually slumbering giants of destruction. There are many across the planet that are overdue to pop, some having not been disturbed for thousands of years. However, scientists have a list of volcanoes they are carefully watching that they think might explode in our lifetime. One such volcano is Mount Shasta in California, which last erupted in 1786 and is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the US. Mount Paektu in North Korea last erupted in 1903, and scientists also think it's almost ready, especially considering nuclear explosions nearby may have triggered it. Hopefully we don't experience these in our lifetime, but we better be ready if we do. Coming in at number 6, calling all Mark Twain fans. I know I reported this one on one of my previous videos, and apparently I said the name wrong. Sue me. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, I thought it was Holly's or Haley's. I don't know. To be fair, my roommates and I got into a fight about how it's pronounced, and even the internet is indecisive on how it's pronounced, so I'm gonna say it both ways. Anyways, Halley's Comet became famous when Mark Twain tied his life and destiny to it, considering his life both began and ended in both the years it visited our lonely planet Earth. So this news is mostly for anyone born in 1986, as that was the last year Halley's Comet was seen, and it's set to come back in 2061. Hopefully you don't pull a Mark Twain and you live longer than that, but be sure to mark it down anyways. Coming in at number 5, an aquatic rainfall. It's Raining Men by the aptly named Weather Girls is an iconic anthem and has the power to summon even the most deeply rooted wallflowers to the dance floor. Remember dances, guys? Those were fun. Anyways, but perhaps tadpoles or frogs might have been more accurate because though rare, it has been known to happen. Powerful thunderstorms, tornadoes, and waterspouts have powerful updrafts and can be known to sweep aquatic animals along with birds and insects up into the sky. But what goes up must come down, and one day you could be sitting down in a cafe and piles of frogs land on the canopy above you. Nobody knows when this is going to happen, and it doesn't always happen every time there's a thunderstorm. It's rare, which is why it's on this list. But the fact that it could happen anywhere means one day it might just happen to you. I honestly don't know which is more rare, raining frogs or being able to sit in a cafe. Coming in at number 4, this next one is definitely going to happen in our lifetime, as it's happening this very month. On May 26th, a total lunar eclipse is set to occur. A total lunar eclipse is when the closest and biggest full moon of the year will sweep through the Earth's dark umbral shadow. Total lunar eclipses like this one carry with them a wealth of lore and myths from around the world. The Mesopotamians believed that this was an attack on the moon by 7 demons. Well, today, the Batamalima people in Togo and Benin believe that this is a time for people to come together and resolve feuds and their anger. The last time an event like this occurred on a supermoon was 2.5 years ago, so make sure to make it count. Coming in at number 3, we have triple Jovian eclipse. Next up, we have not 1, not 2, but 3 eclipses, except it's not on the moon, it's on Jupiter. The triple Jovian eclipse is really rare and can be identified by 3 black dots lined up on the surface of Jupiter. The black dots are 3 Galilean moons, Io, Callisto, and Ganymede. Jupiter has 16 moons in total, and the 3 mentioned are among the biggest in its orbit. The last time this happened was in 2004. It was spotted by the Hubble Space Telescope, but because it moves so fast over Jupiter's surface, it's been difficult for researchers to capture the entire event. But as the next Jovian eclipse is set to happen in 2032, they hope they'll be able to capture it in more detail. Coming in at number 2, a total solar eclipse. Unfortunately, you can't look at this bad boy straight on, so get ready to get crafty. The next total solar eclipse is set to appear in 2045. They are super rare, and the last one happened in 2017. Imagine where you'll be in 2045 and make sure you've got some proper eyewear with you. A total solar eclipse is when the new moon passes between the sun and the earth and casts the darkest part of the shadow on the earth. It looks like a disc is blocking the sun, but if you look at it straight on, you may go blind, so don't do that. But if you can, find a way. During annular and partial eclipses, the moon is only blocking part of the sun, but during this one, the whole world is cast in darkness, like the shortest night. As for the specific date, we don't know yet, so make sure to set a reminder for your future self to keep an eye out. Or don't. Keep your eyes shut. Don't look at it. And last but not least, number 1. Now this last one is not a natural phenomenon, but one we've started to create, and just how rare it will be in the future all depends on how far we go. When humankind first landed on the moon, it made the stars above us seem that much closer. And they keep getting closer. It takes a lot for humans to go to space, and it feels like we've been waiting a while to go to the moon. Because we have. It has been over 50 years since astronauts last set foot on the moon. But guess what? The next one is sooner than you think. The Artemis program is set to put boots on the moon, hopefully by 2024, though some expect it may even be as early as 2022, next year. Considering the year we've had, it's a wonderful thing to look forward to. It will also be the first time a woman and a person of color has ever set foot on the moon. But this time, they aren't just going to visit, they plan to stay for a while. While Apollo 17 only spent 3 days, Artemis plans to extend the trip to weeks, even maybe months. In February 2020, NASA began rigorous tests on the spacecraft Orion, which is equipped with life support systems and shuttle interfaces. It will dock with the Lunar Gateway, which will serve as the astronauts' base when exploring the moon. If this all goes well, their next plan is to launch a team to Mars. Coming in at number 10, the fall of the Chinese satellite. Starting off at number 10, this one just happened, so I'm counting it as number 10, so sue me. By now, you've probably heard of space junk starting to become a problem. And the fall of the Chinese rocket is a perfect example of something that could very well happen again. The Chinese Long Branch 5B launched on April 29th of this year, but shortly after the launch, it was announced that part of the ship that carried the fuel would fall back to Earth, but no one knew where. Given that the majority of Earth is made up of water, there was a smaller chance that it was going to end up on land. Though there was still a chance, which is the scary part. Thankfully, the 5B landed just a little ways from the Maldives, but scientists say that this is the 4th biggest uncontrolled re-entry in history. If the 5B had landed on land, it could have caused some serious damage, so thank goodness it didn't, but it almost did. But what's worse is that there are over 50 dangerous items scientists are keeping their eye on in orbit right now. Most of them are discarded rocket boosters from Soviet spacecrafts that, should they collide, could cause harmful debris to fly back towards Earth, and the results could be catastrophic. Hopefully that doesn't happen in our lifetime, but unfortunately, it definitely could.
Okay, you should go now. Bye.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm gonna brutalize this. I tried to look it up, but there was nothing! So next up at number 9, we have Churyumov Gerasimenko Comet. Churyumov-Gerasimenko Comet is a comet named after two of its discoverers that orbits the sun about every 6 years. It made history when it was the first comet to be orbited and landed on by a robot. The Rosetta landed on the comet in 2014, but unfortunately died out when the comet moved too far into Jupiter's orbit. Still, we were able to gain valuable information about the material makeup of comets. Scientists discovered phosphorus and organic compounds such as glycine, which suggests that comets could have helped bring life to Earth. Its travel path passes the orbit of both Jupiter and Mars, but never enters Earth's. Discovered in 1969, the comet was bright enough to be seen from Earth without a telescope, but now, as the comet is constantly being swayed by Jupiter's gravitational force, it may take a little more effort to spot it passing by. So get a cool, awesome telescope and just go check it out. Coming in at number 8, Saturn in opposition. So I get a kind of cool spacey birthday gift this year, as on August 2nd, Saturn will reach opposition. What does that mean? It means that the Earth will pass directly between Saturn and the Sun, meaning that the planet will be at its brightest and will continue to shine after this day, so a few more weeks after. It takes Saturn around 29 Earth years for it to orbit the Sun, so this event is rare, but if you do happen to miss it, don't worry, just keep looking to the sky. Saturn will continue to shine for a few more weeks after. Coming in at number 7, monarch butterfly migration. So if you're a big fan of crazy yearly events that you have to be in the right time and place for, and you love butterflies, well, I got a little treat for you. If you venture to Mexico or California around September, October, you may see one of the most colorful insect migrations in the world. Every year, monarch butterflies migrate from Canada and the eastern US to the warmer climate of Mexico and California to huddle together by the millions in trees. The one sad part is that these beautiful insects will never really return home, and this will be the last time they will ever be seen. On their way home, the female monarchs lay eggs, and it is only when the next generation grows up that the journey home is finally complete. So, and then the cycle begins again. Number 6, planetary alignment, September 8th, 2040. Despite what the fates foretold in the Tale of Hercules, for example, nothing really bad happens when the planets align. Some believe that the gravity is magnified and the tidal forces will lead to catastrophic events like earthquakes and tsunamis, etc. However, in truth, it really makes no difference, but it's definitely a sight to behold. Mark your calendars, because at 7:30 p.m. on September 8th, 2040, 5 naked eye planets will cluster together, including Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and the crescent moon. Coming in at number 5, we have Brood X. You know that buzzing sound you hear on warm summer nights? That's oddly soothing but very persistent. You might already know I'm talking about cicadas, not crickets, and this year we are about to hear one of the rarest symphonies in the world. Every year, a smallish number of cicadas rise up from the ground and begin buzzing, but Brood X is a result of over 17 years of patience. Once every 17 years, this brood of cicadas emerges from the ground in the trillions, and it's estimated that their song will reach up to 100 decibels. Brood X, or the Great Eastern Brood, is said to start emerging in May and will hang around for about 5 to 6 weeks. By that time, their discarded exoskeletons will litter the ground, so watch your step. These long cycles of hibernation are actually their evolutionary strategy that dates back to 1.8 million years ago. The weather was unpredictable back then, so cicadas developed different cycle lengths to help combat this so they could survive. So if you live in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, maybe carry a pair of earplugs with you later this month just in case it gets too loud, but otherwise enjoy. Number 4, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft just reached a massive milestone in space travel, as it is now 50 times as far than Earth is from the Sun, and was even able to photograph the Voyager 1, which is even farther. But by the 2040s, we will see New Horizons finally meet Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 into interstellar space. New Horizons gets its power source from a single, essentially nuclear battery that sources its power through the natural radioactive decay of plutonium dioxide fuel. The decay rate is high enough to create a reliable amount of heat, so the engine can just keep on going. Considering the never-ending amount of travel time, who knows what information Horizon, Voyager 1 and 2 will deliver to us. Who knows, maybe by the 2040s it won't just join its cousins in space, but it might come across another machine sent from somewhere else in the universe. possibilities are endless. You know I'm excited about aliens, you guys. Coming in at number 3, we have the hybrid solar eclipse in 2031. In 2031, one of the rarest eclipses in history will take place, a hybrid solar eclipse. What is it? Well, a hybrid solar eclipse is an eclipse that starts out in one form and then morphs into another. For instance, it can turn from an annular eclipse to a total eclipse, which is exactly what will happen for 1 minute and 8 seconds on Friday, November 14th, 2031. The reason as to why they are so rare is that both distances of the moon and the sun have to be exactly right. Hybrids usually happen about once per decade, so make sure you mark this one down in your calendars. Number 2, we have Sagitta goes nova. Many of the stars we see in the night sky today are just echoes of stars that used to be, their light only reaching us today after they've long since gone. The universe is constantly moving, shrinking, and expanding in different ways, collapsing galaxies and creating black holes. Well, next up in our lifetime, potentially, if I make it to 100, these two stars in the Sagittae binary star system are going to collide, creating a star explosion called the nova. This collision will cause Sagitt to shine brighter than any other stars in the Milky Way. Sagitt is considered to be a cataclysmic variable star, and if you spot it from Earth, you will see a light gradually rising and falling. This flickering is a result of two stars circling each other. One is a regular star like our sun, and the other is a white dwarf. It has recently been discovered that the stars aren't just close to each other, they're spiraling towards each other, and scientists predict that in 2083, the two will finally collapse into one another, creating a nova. Number 1, visit to Mars. In the last video, I talked about how in 2024, NASA hopes that we will put boots on the moon once again. So what's next? Well, if that extended stay goes well, the next plan in the agenda is to put boots on Mars, something we just might see in our lifetime. Key components for the mission are already underway, which include development of long-duration life support systems. NASA's InSight mission is now on Mars, and its stay has been extended in order to measure what life on Mars, such as quakes and dust devils, would be like, such as how often do earthquakes and dust devils happen. It's also a test for how useful solar panels will be on Mars if it's an effective form of energy. But its journey to and from the planet is the precursor to manned missions to Mars, so depending on how the next year goes, we might be around to see astronauts on Mars. How cool is that? Coming in at number 10, flying in a window. If you've ever given up the window seat for your toddler when you fly together, fear not. One day, everyone will have a window seat, as Technicon Design in France and UK's Centre for Process Innovation wants to offer a panoramic view of the sky. But don't worry, the plane won't be entirely made of glass. It will merely be a convincing simulation created by cameras placed on the outside of the plane. The hope is that passengers will feel as though they are walking on air, and it will also make planes lighter. I can't imagine this would be a very pleasant experience for anyone who is terrified of heights, but for all window seat lovers like me, this would certainly be a breath of fresh air for those long flights. Number 9, the days will be longer. So I'm not just talking about the summer solstice here. Our days are actually going to get longer, albeit not by much, but still, ask any parent, an extra second before bedtime makes a huge difference. Every 100 years we gain around 1.7 milliseconds. The reason this happens is because of the ocean's tides generated by the gravity of the sun and the moon. As the moon slowly spirals away from Earth, it essentially takes the energy out of Earth's orbit, slowing it down. This is a very simplistic explanation, but essentially the whole thing can be blamed on the effects of gravity. But a lot of us who feel there are not enough hours in the day wish it was more, but still, our children, then our children's children, then our children's children's children just might get that wish. It is kind of crazy to think that this is happening slowly every day. Number 8, imagine being able to check your email, tweet, or post to Instagram all with the blink of an eye. It appears phone screens, or any screen for that matter, are determined to be so small they're almost invisible. If you're worried about your kids having too much screen time, well, keep an eye out for when smart contact lenses hit the playground. Samsung is determined to one-up the Google Lens, which was released in 2014, and they may be closer than you think. Researchers have inserted a light-emitting diode in a newly developed material that is a stretchy combination of graphene and silver nanowires that is not only transparent, but highly conductive. Beyond potentially using them to read emails, but then still finding an excuse not to reply right away, medically, these technical wonders could be really helpful. At the University of Illinois, researchers are currently using the graphene nanowire conductors to make biosensors to help monitor the overall health of the eyes. They're also being used to help filter light in specific ways to help a variety of vision problems. things. Coming in at number 7, AI robots. So if you watched my previous video about robots who will take over the world, then you know that AI robotics is making some serious strides. So it could be that by the time our children are grown up, that their best friend could be a robot. In fact, we are already in a stage of co-evolution. Sam Altman, who is president of the Y Combinator, says, and I quote, "Oh yeah, we're making robots that are way too smart. We're all doomed. We will be the first species ever to design our own descendants." Look, it is pure human arrogance if we don't think we will be able to build something that is smarter than us. It's gonna happen either way, by accident or on purpose. Most people believe that AI robots could create a form of subhuman either as early as 2025 or 2075. Neuroscientist and geostrategist Dr. Naif Al-Rodin even said that it's only a matter of time before we create transhumans, improved versions of ourselves that could threaten their non-advanced selves, so they'll look to destroy them. Number 6, self-driving cars. Everyone knows how exciting it is to turn 16 and finally get behind the wheel of a car for the first time, legally. And every parent knows the feeling of having to lend your car out to someone who's only been driving for a year. Yay! But there is a possibility that in future, both these experiences could be eradicated with self-driving cars. Many high-tech companies like Tesla and Waymo boasted that millions of these vehicles would be on the roads by now, but that's not the case yet, because the cars rely on AI to work, and though we've made massive strides in that field, as I said, AI still can't improvise and solve real-world problems. In order to do this, the computers have to collect hundreds, thousands of hours of data of real people driving cars to get an understanding of how to navigate unpredictable situations. So it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it's just going to take a little longer. Will it be just in time for your child's 16th birthday? Who knows? But scientists are definitely on the way. Number 5, lab-grown meat. Imagine digging into a juicy burger or pound after pound of spicy chicken wings with none of the guilt. Scientists are currently working on ethical lab-grown meat that will eradicate the need for slaughterhouses altogether. As our population approaches 10 billion people, feeding that many stomachs poses a massive challenge that we just won't have the space for. On top of the fact that going vegan or vegetarian isn't always accessible to some either by cost or lifestyle choice, meat is still a necessity. In fact, scientists expect the demand for meat to rise by 88% between now and 2050, which would mean we would need a pastoral land the size of India to cope. So what's the alternative solution? Stem cells! Yay! Scientists will take stem cells from a live animal and grow them in a nutrient-rich bioreactor with cell culture media. The biomass will then be separated into muscle and fat cells, then processed for final product. Our dinner! I know it sounds more chemical than appetizing, but these will be a healthy and cruelty-free option for so many who require meat for their diets. Personally, I'm 100% down. I'm in. It's cool. Chiok Meats is a company based in Singapore that is one example of a startup company who can grow seafood crustaceans 4 times faster than the traditional method. So if it ends up being even better, hell yeah. Number 4, communicating with the dead. Okay, did anyone else binge the show Upload on Amazon Prime or San Junipero? Let me know in the comments if you did. If you didn't, the show centers around the idea that people can upload their consciousness to an afterlife that can be interacted with by the living, which may be closer to reality than we thought. Ray Kurzweil, futurist and director at Google, thinks it is possible that we will be able to create a virtual reality where avatars of our deceased loved ones exist. They may even be so realistic that we could interact with them. He's experimenting by uploading photos and letters from his father, saying that the avatar he creates will know his father's entire past. Theoretically, not the same thing at all. And I wonder, could this cause more harm than good? I'm sure all of us have someone in our lives we wish we could speak with just one more time, but what happens if we can never let go? Now, before we review our top 3, remember to press that like button if you're excited to see what's next, and if you want more videos like this. All right, coming in at number 3, internet for everyone. You get internet, and you get internet, and hey, you over there, you get internet too. Yeah, imagine never having to run out of data while using Google Maps in a new city or out in the boonies somewhere. Well, Starlink hopes to make that happen, and maybe even as soon as the end of this year. Once again, we've got Elon Musk on our list because love him or hate him, wherever there are big ideas, Musk seems to be attached to them. Starlink is an internet service that hopes to bring high-speed, low-latency broadband internet globally. It's still in its beta stages, but as Starlink continues to launch satellites and ground stations, the service is only going to improve with maybe a few setbacks. Either way, whether it's Starlink or another competitor, our future generations may not know what it is like to stand on a chair holding her phone up to the air to just get Wi-Fi connection. Just like some kids already don't know what dial-up is. Number 2, we will have the ability to transfer thoughts telekinetically. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? But actually, it's already happened. According to an article in the Smithsonian Magazine in 2014, a recent telekinetic experiment had a person from India say hola and ciao to 3 other people in France. The remarkable accomplishment was a combined effort from Barcelona Research Institute Starlab, French firm Axiom Robotics, and Harvard Medical School. But don't worry, the purpose of this technology is not to hack our thoughts, but to allow people to communicate in limited situations for those who can't speak anymore or have sensory impairments. But we still have a long way to go. Though the experiment was successful, it's still a pretty complicated way to say hello. First, the team had to translate letters into a binary equivalent. Then the sender, with sensors attached to their head, had to move their hands to indicate the message. The receiver was then blindfolded and their head fixed to a transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a non-invasive headset often used to treat depression. And the stimulation from the headset caused him to see flashes of light, kind of like Morse code, and from there it was translated into text. So, long process. The whole thing took a total of 70 seconds. Imagine if you lost the ability to speak or had to communicate silently over a long distance. Either way, it's easy to imagine that this technology might be perfected within our kids' lifetime. Hopefully, they've passed their teenage years because no parent wants to know what their kids are thinking at that age. And lastly, number 1, we might no longer be on Earth. Look, you can still tell your child that they can be whatever they want to be when they grow up, as long as astronaut is hyphenated, like actor, astronaut, doctor, astronaut, shoemaker, astronaut. The late Stephen Hawking wasn't alone when he made the prediction that in the next 100 years, due to climate change, humanity will have to leave Earth. If not climate change, then pandemics, I know, been there, done that, but likely to happen again, population growth, and even overdue asteroids give us good reasons to expand our living space. With the next moon landing testing our limitations for long-term habitation on the moon, and $3 trillion being invested in the International Space Station, it is possible that our children or great-grandchildren will have to have a bag packed ready for space at any time. Coming in at number 10, superhuman genes. If you were to be transported to the future, there wouldn't be a human being you'd recognize. That's not just because they're not your friends or relatives or neighbors. One of the predictions of the world 1,000 years from now is that the humans who live then will be superhuman. Imagine being Superman, but in real life. It is theorized that humans in 1,000 years will carry genes that are superhuman to some that we have today. CRISPR technology is already trying to do this. It's a form of gene editing that allows researchers to alter DNA sequences and modify gene function. This can help correct genetic defects, treat and cure diseases, even those passed on. But the technology may also be used to improve the ones we already have. What if you could build muscle faster or deteriorate slower or have incredible hearing and eyesight? All this is possible and more. Coming in at number 9, humans may become cyborgs. Scientists and engineers have begun to make incredible improvements to prosthetic limbs for amputees, some even being able to connect to our minds in order to operate just like a real arm or leg. For instance, the high-tech Luke arm has finally been given the sensation of touch by researchers at the University of Utah, which is something that's been missing. But we still have a long way to go to make prosthetics compare to having the real-life thing. But in 1,000 years, we will probably have solved that issue and then some. In fact, humans may even elect to swap out an eye or a limb for a superior robotic version, making us potentially half cyborg. Even wearable exoskeletons have already been paired with AI to help give factory workers superhuman strength. Number 8, we will be able to live a lot longer. Life is long, and the short of it is that it goes by in the blink of an eye. I don't think there is a person on this earth that doesn't wish they could have a bit more time in their 20s or a few decades more in general. For people 1,000 years from now though, that might very well be a reality. In fact, humans might have the capability of living for hundreds of years. Billionaires are already investing millions of dollars into the effort. Considering the fact that the aforementioned gene editing software exists, we might be able to slow down the aging process or even stop it completely. But then, what about disease or car crashes, etc.? Well, by controlling our genes, we may be able to make humans immune to disease. As for car crashes, we will have self-driving cars, so that might happen less often or even not at all. I mean, accidents will still happen, but hey, with medicine being as fantastic as it will be, we may even survive the worst kind of accident. Number 7, only 3 languages. Okay, so, hey, who's a fan of Firefly? Anyone? Raise your hands. Apparently that future isn't too far off the mark, though I really hope reapers don't exist, because that would have been terrifying. But according to an article by the BBC, there may be a chance that we only speak 3 languages globally: Spanish, English, and Mandarin. Others say we may have just one global language that we operate under. It's not like that hasn't been attempted before. In 1880, a Bavarian priest tried to combine French, German, and English, but that was obviously too complicated. But then Esperanto surfaced. That was so easy, anyone who plays board games could pick it up. But by that point, English had kind of taken over. But here's some perspective. 2,000 years ago, English was an unwritten tongue in the Iron Age of tribes of Denmark. 1,000 years later, it was the language spoken below French-speaking nobles. Now, 1,000 years after that, English is where it is now today. Now, in another 1,000 years, it could be English in first place, or another language could take its place. But there is a common theme that languages do die, and eventually there will be less to choose from. Number 6, humans will live in space. Okay, we've talked about this already. It's happening, guys. People have written the checks. It's only a matter of time. We are already trying to live on the moon for a full year next time we visit. There are plans to go to Mars and live there. Trust me, guys, it's not just for fun. If we humans want to survive for the next 100 years even, we have to find a way to live elsewhere. And by elsewhere, I mean not on Earth. Great minds like Stephen Hawking dealt out warnings to the human race before he passed away, and scientists took them super seriously. Of course they should. So it's not even a question that if we are still around in 1,000 years, it's because we've just pitched up on Mars. Number 5, we might have a relationship with aliens. Speaking of living on Mars, as we continue to explore the universe, who might we meet? A lot can happen in even 100 years, let alone 1,000, and it's only a matter of when, not if. Jamie Matthews, astrophysicist and professor at the University of British Columbia, said, and I quote, "By the year 2118, extraterrestrial life won't be news but historical fact." Unquote. If I'm being honest here, I'm not so worried about the aliens. I'm more worried about how we are going to act. Will it make us more humble, fearful, arrogant? Will we try and colonize or experiment on these beings, etc.? Considering how we've dealt with new discoveries, have we learned from our mistakes? How we will react to life beyond Earth is even harder to predict than when it will happen. Number 4, high-tech medicine. We all should take our hats off to healthcare workers around the world right now and every day, and not just because of COVID. Some remarkable things are happening. In recent years, a woman gave birth after a uterus transplant for the first time, and another gave birth to a baby that began as a frozen embryo 24 years ago. I mentioned earlier that we will probably live a lot longer in 1,000 years, but why? Scientists are currently making strides in being able to treat diseases like cancer that are tailored to an individual's patent genes. Additionally, the use of nanorobots as a way of protecting our body is another avenue scientists are playing around with. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology has created a cell-sized robot that can not only navigate themselves, but also sense issues with their environment. I don't know how I feel about this one, but hey, if we can catch a deadly disease before it spreads, hey, that's definitely worth trying out. Number 3, hotter planet. If you think global warming isn't happening, well, so sorry, you are so wrong. From extreme weather events that are becoming more frequent and more fatal, to sea levels on track to rise 2 to 3 feet by 2100, displacing millions of people around the world, there is so much evidence. One 2015 study even predicted that Greenland won't have any ice by 2050. Hopefully, we will be able to quit the carbon habit, but unfortunately, it won't be as sudden as we need it to be. Temperatures will continue to rise, and we are beyond the point of preventing it from happening, but we can potentially slow it down. So the future does look hotter, but hopefully nanobots will be able to help. In 1,000 years, nanobots might solve a lot of our problems, including the health ones I mentioned. It might also solve environmental damage, air purity, and be able to capture energy from the sun. So I guess we'll be holding out for a tiny but mighty hero in this case. Number 2, desert rainforest. Sounds impossible, right? Well, the process actually exists, and it's called desert greening. Love how literal that is. Though we may not see much of a difference now, in 1,000 years we may find deserts will become tropical rainforests. Desert greening has been going on for several years now, with experiments beginning in the Sahara Desert. This could help solve dozens of problems such as food and water shortages. Currently, the greening process is being performed over 30 million square kilometers of land, and not just on the hot sandy beach deserts, but also on icy tundras. There are many different methods currently in use. One is rotational grazing, which manages where livestock feeds so they can give specific areas breaks, and landscaping efforts to help reduce erosion, evaporation, and the appearances of sandstorms are also underway. So yeah, in 1,000 years, deserts might be a thing of the past. Arabia now. Love that song. Number 1, space elevators. If you're a fan of Willy Wonka and have always dreamed of going up in that magical elevator that can fly, well, hopefully you will in 1,000 years. Because guys, space elevators, if we gotta go visit our relatives in space, we can't just take a rocket every time. That's expensive. We gotta get up there in style. NASA says that a basic concept of the space elevator is sound, and researchers are optimistic that it can happen. Tokyo-based Obayashi Corp has even boasted that they plan to have one built by 2050, and China wants to beat that by 2045. But realistically, it's going to take far longer than that. Experiments on board the International Space Station are already underway, however, and could determine how soon this could become a reality. It could be in hundreds of years, or it could just be in 50. A mini elevator called Stars Me, devised by Japanese physicists, will simulate on a small scale what conditions an elevator to the stars would encounter in a weightless environment. Experts call the space elevator idea the holy grail for space travel, as it would be an affordable way for everyone to reach the stars.